Hi, everybody. Lisa Goslin. I am on the Microsoft Security Partner Development Team. What that means is I help and work with partners like BlueVoyant that can assist our clients in their cybersecurity journey. And I've had the pleasure of working with BlueVoyant over the past 2 years. As Paulette said, yay, no slides, no PowerPoint today. Well, there will be PowerPoint, but we're going to be asking questions and talking about them. I encourage you to put your questions in the chat. And I am going to hand it over to you, Mona. Nice to see you.
Oh, it's always good to see you, Lisa. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Mona Gadiri, Director of Product Management here at BlueVoyant. So glad to be here and excited to go through these questions today. And feel free to, if you have questions or you want to interact or you want to answer any of these questions, feel free to put your answers in the chat too. We want to have this be as engaging as possible. So without further ado, let's go to our. All right. So just want to start with kind of insurance angle because we've been kind of weaving that in and out of our education's journey. Lisa, can you tell me about some of the notable changes you've seen in terms of provider policies or any notable coverage changes, any shockers or anything that you're like, oh, this seems so different than before?
Well, so I think the real impact that has happened really started over 3 years ago with COVID hitting. So COVID hit. All businesses, education included, was we need to continue business as usual. And so what that meant was everyone grabbed their dad's tablet or the PC that was sitting in the corner for 8 years and not updated. They grabbed whatever they could to continue business as usual. What that in effect provided was this tsunami of information, tsunami of opportunity for the attackers, right? They now had their this external surface multiplied hundreds, millions of times now. And so what happened was ransomware skyrocketed and insurance companies had to pay out. So there were huge losses. And in 2021, it skyrocketed. What we saw last year, it's come down a little bit. I think that as a result, the brokers over pivoted. They came out with their applications that was, okay, organizations, you want cyber insurance? It's going to multiply. Your rate's going to multiply. Your coverage is going to be limited. And you have to provide everything from your DLP policies to zero trust framework to your firstborn. So what we're seeing now is, I think we're starting to settle a little bit, and the brokers are coming back to, let's look at basic security controls. Let's try to rein those dollars in and provide customers what they need. There is a quote that I love. It's from Robin Sharma, who is a self-help guru and author from Canada. And what he says is, change is always hardest at the beginning, messiest in the middle, and best at the end. And I think that can be applied here. I think we're still in the messiest, but hopefully, over the next couple of years, we'll see that settle down a bit. What about you, Mona? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have to echo kind of, in terms of policies, I'm seeing the rise in continuous monitoring being something that people recognize. There's policies and, setting good, posture is important, right? But there is no replacement for somebody, just being there all the time, right? So seeing that continuous monitoring is something that insurance policies and providers and brokers are starting to recognize as a value add. Has been tremendous for us, right? It used to be, insurance cared if you had an incident response retainer. Do you have something for when something bad happens, right? But being able to say, no, continuous monitoring is actually even, in some cases, better paired with incident response, right? Because that reducing that time to containment means somebody needs to know what's going on before, right? Parachuting someone in means they still have to learn all of that other stuff that's happening about the customer's environment. When you have an MDR service or you're doing something where that monitoring piece is in place, right? It's such a different conversation, right? Because someone knows exactly what's happening. They know who those people are, who are the, top 10 bad baddies who usually do stuff in the environment, right?
Yep.
And that's the kind of information that, being able to hand off to an instant responder means that time to, remediate or time to conduct the whole thing, right, shrinks tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. I agree. So the next question, what do you think are the main factors that have impacted insurance premiums the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really about, we talk about trust but verify in lots of parts of the world, right? Lots of different aspects. But, I really think trust but verify has really been impacting insurance premiums. They don't just take your word for it, right? You used to just be able to say, I did all these things. Here's my questionnaire that I filled out. Now they want proof, right? Show me that you did that. I won't just take your word for it, right? And that, I think, if your ability to show your homework, right, bring your paper, right, impacts your premiums, right? Those who bring their homework see the reductions. Those who don't, right, and who have to say, trust me, it's a tougher sell, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, and I would just add that, it's insurance is not that, it's not rocket science. It's risk. It's all about risk and algorithms. And the more risk, the greater the premiums. So to your point, the ability to show a positive risk posture is key in not only getting insurability. And here's where I have to put my disclaimer. I'm with Microsoft. We don't sell insurance policies. We're not making any promises about on behalf of the insurance companies, but you've got to be able to show those security controls. And to your point, not just one and done, but the ongoing, because that's the reality of cybersecurity. It's everyday, proactive, as well as reactive.
Challenges around colleges and universities with multiple campuses. Have you had a chance to work with very many colleges and universities, Lisa?
Yeah, I have, and I think that this one for me is the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges, is that colleges and universities are all about collaborating and open platforms and having rich information, right? And that, with students and staff and everybody sharing. And that goes against a little bit. There's a lot of tension between putting security and making sure the right people have the right access at the right time to the right systems. And it's kind of like an oxymoron trying to implement controls, but allowing for that fostering of ideating and brainstorming and sharing. So I think that those are a couple of the bigger challenges. How do you implement something that's the best for the business, but also allows the business to operate and succeed on what their objectives are? What are your thoughts?
I love what you said about governance, right? Because I think that's really something that we struggle with when we talk to colleges and universities, right? In some cases, each campus has its own IT staff. They have their own CISO. They're making their own decisions. They're a little bit more autonomous, right? Yeah. We also have other colleges and universities who think about the entire network of colleges in their system to be more of like almost a managed service, right? Where there's a central decision-making hub, and instead of having all of those things, dispersed at each particular location, right? They centralize a lot of the network infrastructure, a lot of the cloud billing, or they're using, shared infrastructure, right? Whether that's, to your point, maybe it's sharing devices, right? Or sharing, more networks or other sorts of things. And so I think that difference in decision making, I think, sometimes helps cybersecurity strategies at those firms, or sorry, those colleges, universities, and sometimes makes it more challenging, right? So I think, depending on how your organization makes IT decisions and buying decisions, and also operations, right? There's a really big difference there. Got a good question in the chat. Are you saying yes, absolutely. Request to do PIM, so privileged identity, right? So we 100% are seeing, requirements to PIM up, right? We're also seeing a lot of pushes coming to do things with security groups instead of individuals. So we don't ever want to assign any responsibility or any permissions exclusively to a person. We want to assign it to the security group and then add and remove people, right, over time, right? So then you don't have to worry about someone was the last person who have access to that and now there's no one who has access or that kind of thing. But PIMing and PAM, right? So access management, as well as that kind of identity use case, we see a ton. We also see customers using or leveraging other tools in conjunction with Microsoft, like CyberArk or those types of tools, because they have additional audit requirements for who's making changes, how are those changes being made. And again, I think just from like a role separation perspective, it's a much, much better practice. And also your secure score, the more admins you have, or if you have, too many of, anyone with standing permissions at a time, you'll see your secure score will drop, right? So doing things like just-in-time access mean that you can keep your secure score low, but still give more than, 4 or 5 admins, security admin or global admin permissions, when they need it. The other thing we're seeing is customers using managed identities. So managed identities are another unique to Active Directory and Azure, right? Where it's instead of assigning either a person or a group, it can be leveraged in automation. And that managed identity can authorize or not authorize specific automations to run or specific workflows. So for example, we had a customer who was a college university who wanted to know if somebody had given their login information to somebody in India and they had logged in to take their test for them. So we were able to do an additional, ask for that secondary MFA. Where did the MFA challenge come from? Was it the same place as the login? If they don't match, email the administrator, the dean, of that student, as well as the professor, to tell them that there, was an indicator of suspicious activity surrounding logins for students, in this case specifically, to take tests. But absolutely seeing both a automated way of doing this as well as a manual requirement for users. But great question, Barry. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. So the next question, what do you think are some of the best practices for protecting student users, Mona?
So I'm big on segmentation, network segmentation, as far as, especially wide area networks or, kind of open networks that exist that, you find very commonly in, student commons or dorms or those kinds of things. Really segmentation is best. We also advocate for Intune joined devices or domain joined devices, right? For any devices that are going to be connecting to networks. We also highly recommend that, if possible, even going so far as to have Defender for Endpoint deployed on, student devices or devices students use, maybe not BYOD necessarily, but, devices that are owned by the college or university that are used by students, right? They really still need that same level of protection, right? So just because it's a student device, we don't necessarily want to say it doesn't need, an EDR agent. We want to make sure EDR agents are places where students click things or download things, or, oftentimes, if there are development shops that are associated with different computer science programs, right, they'll download anything off the internet, any libraries or packages or anything they can get off the internet, right? So having really good access policies and SaaS policies are also really good. Whether or not you allow a student to use their login to authorize other SaaS applications, right? Highly recommend, if you're not thinking or doing some of those kinds of things, right? Don't let your students use their logins for school to log into kayak.com. Those are great things that in, Microsoft Cloud App Security, you can set and control to ensure that, from a risk attack vector perspective, you just reduce the total impact that any, student could do. So segmentation, device enrollment, and access control, access policies for internet-facing devices would be 3 of my top best practices.
I have a slightly different lens on this, Mona. I'd love to get your
Yeah,
feedback.
no.
It,
Tell me. Yeah,
it,
let's
it's
hear.
about everything you say, I agree with, but I think that sometimes we don't do the basics, which is we are all defenders, all of us, personally and working as employees, and we need education. We need to educate as defenders. We need that knowledge to understand cybersecurity basics. And I say that, so things like, I think there should be intro courses for everyone going into an organization or joining a university, being accepted into a university. You need to take this course so that you're protecting yourself and you're protecting us. And I'll share this story with you, and I share it, but we're amongst friends here, and it might be career limiting, but I'm going to share it anyway. So I joined Microsoft. So I've been in cybersecurity for a long time. I joined Microsoft 3 years ago, and you join Microsoft, and it's a 200,000 person company, and to say it's the closest thing I've ever come to a tsunami in terms of links and learning and trainings is an understatement. And I'm trying to get up to speed, and I'm being asked to fill out this form and this form. Long story short, I get an email saying, your password has expired. You will not be able to get into your system. You will be locked out, Microsoft Team. And I clicked it, and it was a phishing test. And I sat there saying, and the point of it is we're all vulnerable. It doesn't matter how much I want to do the best I can at Microsoft. I'm new. I want to make sure I'm adhering to all the policies, and boom, at that vulnerable minute, they got me. I was like, wow. So I strongly advocate for phishing simulations and educating, because this is a journey that I've been in it for 25 years.
Take. No, that was amazing. No, that was absolutely the human point, and the people side of this are absolutely just as critical as network configurations, system settings, and the things that I was talking about. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, Lisa.
But no one tell HR that I did that at Microsoft. Okay. So the next one. So how have so in terms of solution assessments, what have you seen in terms of that helping with cyber insurance premiums? Love to get your insights.
So I think like a good, better, best, right? So best, right, like I said kind of earlier, is demonstrating continuous monitoring. But if you don't have continuous monitoring and you're a little bit earlier on your journey, you don't have maybe Microsoft tooling deployed that can get you a really simple answer on, really where are you on that kind of cyber maturity journey. A solution assessment is a great way to get that snapshot, that point in time assessment that really just tells you from a Microsoft posture perspective, where are your weak spots, right? Where are the places you're doing well, right? Because both of those things are ammunition for you to take, to whoever you have to go to next, to say that, if we do these 2 or 5 things, we will help you, either advance your security posture, or and by also doing this investment, we can save this money on your insurance, premium on the other side, right? So I think in terms of being able to have data, and take that data that has like meat to it, that says like, look, this is my assessment. It shows I'm doing these things really, really well, is just as important as taking the, hey, these are the soft spots to my boss, and saying, I think that if we make these investments and are able to take those to the cyber insurance folks, that we can get, again, another discount on our premium. So there's 2 ways to shop it, but I've seen it help in both ways. Make the investment case internally, and also justify that you're doing the right thing externally, because I just think it's easier to have a third party come in and measure that assessment and take that to an insurance provider than it is to have you do a self-attestation or a self-assessment, which we kind of talked about. It's just not as meaningful as the other side. What about you? Anything you want to add? Or
I agree, and I would encourage everyone. I know BlueVoyant has offered to do security assessments for anybody on the phone. So to me, not only does it help with cyber insurance premiums, but it helps you. It gives you a snapshot of, as you said, Mona, of this is where I'm at. So the cybersecurity journey, how mature are we in our security policies? And it gives you a starting point. So I think it's critical in the overall journey.
Yeah, Ronnie brought up a really great thing in the chat where he was saying external attack surfaces, right? It's as much about looking external as internal, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely agree, right? Anything you can do to justify that your supply chain is in good standing, that your external facing, internet facing things are in good working order, right? I mean, that's all part of the same story. So I'm so excited about this question. Can I just answer it? I feel like I want to just dive in. It's just
Go.
so I know it's using some acronyms. So let's go through the acronyms first. MDR, Managed Detection and Response, right? That's our continuous monitoring. DFIR, Digital Forensics and Incident Response, right? I kind of mentioned this idea that insurers used to just really look for that IR play for the insurance kind of use case, but you know, MDR and DFIR, they're mutually beneficial, right? Because that overlap in the people who know what's going on all the time and the experts who are your SWAT team. We talk about a healthcare example. When we have a customer who is in that place where you need to see a specialist, right? Something bad has happened, right? You don't have your general practitioner, doing everything that a specialist would, right?
Mhm.
And the insurance providers kind of picked up on that same kind of difference, right? You need to have a general practitioner. You should be getting your annual physical. You should be getting your blood drawn and you check your cholesterol and all that kind of stuff. And that's your MDR service, right? But whether you're talking about life insurance or health insurance or cyber insurance, right? That same idea of having a specialist on hand and knowing who your specialists are gives a level of understanding to your cyber insurance provider to say, oh, like they're actually taking this seriously. So I think the what is incident response and what is continuous monitoring, the insurance providers have been learning. But also at the same time, I really do think that they are super symbiotic because they're not the same. You would never ask an oncology specialist, to tell you, whether or not you had high cholesterol, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just not. I mean, they would know how to talk about it because all doctors are smart, right? But you really want a specialist, for specialist reasons.
Absolutely agree. And I split out incident response is more about containment and response, get the business up and running, back to, and digital forensics is really digging into the what, where, how, and hopefully why, what happened. And then that information is critical if you pursue litigation or auditors and to
Yeah,
the insurance
litigation is a
companies.
big one,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
And and
you
so
don't want to go at that by yourself.
and then hopefully
Definitely not.
taking that information and pouring it back into your learnings and coming out even more secure based on what you've learned. So I agree with you. It's hand in hand with MDR. All right, next question. When a college buys A5, where should they start implementing? So, and for those of you, A5, Microsoft has these licensing bundles and it's filled with lots of different security solutions. And I'm going to let Mona take this one because she's the expert.
Oh yeah, so like Lisa was saying, right? A5 is a group of Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office, Defender for Cloud Apps, and as well as several other features, as she mentioned. But the idea is that you can start your security journey, at the endpoint with data, with your users, and there really isn't a wrong answer, right? We want identity protection and Defender for Identity, right? Covering your Active Directory. We want Defender for Endpoint, to get agents deployed out, at least to, like I said, those corporate-owned devices or those, devices that, maybe more than one person uses, right, are really great fits for this. But, the idea is to do a claw motion, right? Start with one or start with a couple. You don't have to do all, 5 of them at once. And we find that a lot of customers are still using like other things like email gateways or other sorts of AV tools, right? There are ways to deploy Defender for Endpoint, for example, in passive mode to help still get those pieces deployed, even if you don't turn them on. That can help you get your journey started, especially if you're buying as a consortium, you happen to already have access to these licenses, and it's just really about deciding about which which piece you bite first, right? But there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's.
That's true. That is absolutely true. To pick up where you on what you were saying, Mona, I think that it's sometimes confusing because it's Defender for endpoint, Defender for email, Defender for Office, Defender for identity. The point is it's a layered approach, a layered security approach. And it's because that's what it takes as us being defenders to make sure that the bad actors don't get access. So even though it can be a little tricky in the naming, know that each performs a specific protection prevention function. And we believe you need them all in order to secure your posture.
Absolutely, and it is not a journey where anybody is measuring how fast you get there. They're just measuring that you're trying to get there, right? And I think that's the most important part, right? There are things like ASR rules and policy settings and different Azure policies that can be part of that continuous, maturity journey. But it really starts with implementation. It really starts with getting the tools in your environment, training your teams, getting them comfortable and familiar with security operations, because there's a lot to learn, right? Lisa and I were talking about this. There's just so much. That really is just about where do you start. So take a dive, call us. The solution assessment can also really help give a really great direction of where to kind of go next. If you want to start with that gap assessment.
Sounds good. And I think this is the last one, Mona.
What can you do now? Call us. I mean, we want to help you. I mean, no, I'm kidding. Actual steps to look at your security posture are, to me, really more about a program, right? Do you have a programmatic approach to cybersecurity? If cybersecurity is an afterthought, if cybersecurity is something that you do Friday afternoons, right? I want to help you get to a cybersecurity program, right? And that means, really thinking about your detection life cycle the same as we think about a student's life cycle, right? The first time you see a new detection, you don't really know what you want to major in, right? You don't know if it's good or bad. There's a whole process that really goes into this cycle, right? What does your alert life cycle look like, right? If you can't really tell me how a bill becomes a law, right? That's somewhere where I really would love to, start the conversation. Right, absolutely. We're Ghostbusters, dude. Come on, you know we are. No, but I really do believe that there is a huge opportunity in terms of posture to really start with a gap analysis, right? Where are you right now? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up, right? When I started college, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and look at me now. I was an anthropology major, and look at me now.
You're a Ghostbuster now.
Now I'm a Ghostbuster, right? But I think the most exciting thing in terms of actionable steps are really using Microsoft, right? Everybody's got a little Microsoft somewhere. There are things like Secure Score. There are things at that A3 license that just start with visibility, right? Visibility has to come first. So try to improve your posture, get to that visibility place, and the sky's the limit from there. I don't know, Lisa, what would you add?
I would add that you shouldn't try to do this alone because it's a lot. And it's, as I've said over and over again, it's dang hard. It's not easy. And it's not a one and done. I do one thing, implement MFA, and woo, I'm all set. No, that's not. It's not the state that we're in. So taking the solution assessment, I think, is a critical first start. And then I always say 98% of breaches can be avoided if you do updated patching, MFA, least privileged, and then once you've got those three pillars in locked down, you can look at defending endpoints and malware and phishing, and then understanding the data, where it is and which data is critical. So it's hard to make a very complex topic or technology like cybersecurity easy, but those are the things that I think you should do. Call Mona. And I think that's all we have.
And again, thank you for joining, and thank you, Lisa and Mona. Have a great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.